I'm Dermot Hussey. Welcome to the YouTube channel for the podcast Riffin Radio. His name identifies his musical instrument, Mikey Bassie, who today is a multiplatinum songwriter producer with hits for Britney Spears and Gloria Estefan. He also worked closely with late Jamaican singer-songwriter Bob Andy. Mikey, how did Bob Andy use his facility and love for language in his songwriting?
I'd like to think that a lot of it was obvious in his lyric for "Let Them Say," the "Babu Babu Babaya" song, which was particularly interesting. The way he sort of invoked the concept of onomatopoeia, which is something he taught me, about the sound of things and how you name them and everything. The boom of the thunder, everything else like that. And he actually, that refrain that you heard in "Let Them Say," "Babu, babu, baba," was the actual sound that the trombone made. And they always said that when he went to the studio, he took a whole arrangement, like a whole orchestra in his head. And when he did the arrangement for that, he was actually invoking the sound that the trombone would have played. Babu, babu, babaya, which was really interesting. I didn't even know that until he told me. And when you listen to the lyric of the song and how he painted a vivid scenery of his own personal experience in understanding something that he was grappling with and what he was going through, "Let Them Say," which most people call the song "Babu Babu Baya," you know what I mean? But it was actually something that he was going through. People see me acting strange. They might think it's a burning shame, but the people don't realize the pangs of hell that I feel. So let them say I'm mad. They don't know how it feels to be sad. I don't know who could be glad. You start see the rhythm of it, almost like a poet in his rhyme, And so we probably know the rest of the words in that. We also saw his love for language also when he did the song "Friends." It was a title track of the album "Friends." When he called on Africans, Chinese, Russians, and Aryans and everybody to understand that you don't even have to call me brother if it's so hard to do. But we can all be friends, and that's an easier concept for people to digest. And he was always using simple language to convey powerful concepts, which is one of the harder things to do, is to economize words and simplify language to convey profound, basic human concepts. So yeah, I'd say in those two examples, he proved that.
Was that songwriting also about a quest for knowledge and information?
I would say his quest for knowledge and information, that was more personal. I would say for example, "Let Them Say," but it was always there as a backdrop to anything that he wrote. But I think it was more exemplified in the song "Life." The more you give to life, the more you get from life. If I remember the lyrics, if everything in life was right, we'd never have to fight. If we, something about learning how to use the brain, and I can't remember all the exact words, but it painted this whole idea of how he wanted to use he was, everything for him was almost like an investigation. He was very
kind of probing.
Yeah, he was very curious. Was a very curious guy, and he was earnest. He was honest. He even allowed himself to be vulnerable in that quest, and what he would do sometimes is to draw even on his love for jazz, because if you listen to that song live, and the more you give to life, the more you get from life. And you hear how he uses that octave, life. Instead of the track, stormy one weather. It's the same. It gives the same idea of using up the vocal range and flirting in between with jazz infusions. I think that really was one of the ones that showed his quest for knowledge, because he was really asking questions. If every man should be the boss and who would groom the horse. It seems simple, but there are profound questions, and he spoke to the equality that he sought to see in the human, which, alas, I don't think he ever saw,
I mean, broadly speaking, what do you see to have been the quality of his thoughts and imagination? I mean, some of it obviously got into songs, but also outside of the song as well.
Well, he was particularly, most people would never know it, but he was particularly interested in science. Not science fiction, but science. We would have discussions about Newtonian physics versus Einsteinian physics, and the concept of space and the continuity of space. And I remember telling him about the concept of the universal gravitational principle, that every single body has an attraction to each other with a force that's proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance apart. He would always try to dig further with that and try to use that to understand human attraction, Yeah, he was also interested in how the quality or the nature of things and the nature of people. Yeah, I remember once we spoke about the concept of everybody speaks about the cause and effect and stuff, but he would go further, and he wanted to talk about the cause of the cause. That's the level of his probe, I remember one time I was having some questions about associates or people I met along the way. Some of them I grew up with, and I no longer at that moment felt that close to them for any number of reasons. Like when you grow apart from people. And he said he has this way when he's thinking, he's invoking both the creative and the intellectual. He rubs his hands together like this. I permitted himself a smile. I said, well, a bird is able to fly literally by taking itself lightly. That was so it's something I kept. As a matter of fact, that inspired me after he passed during COVID last year. Not of COVID. I hasten to tell everyone that that I wrote the song "I Can Fly," which was inspired by that one thing that he taught me.
The bird being able to fly because of its not taking itself lightly.
No, but literally.
Literally, rather. Yeah.
Like getting all the encumbrance and the weight of anything so you can soar. And it's not just a philosophical concept, it's also true and rooted in science. The way that the speed at which the air travels over the top of the wings as opposed to under and provide this uplift. Literally, it's taking itself lightly. That's how he's able to fly. Yeah, very, very, very thoughtful, very, very wise. One of the very wisest you could ever meet.
As a songwriter, how much was he devoted to humanity? Was that one of his concerns?
Absolutely. Well, you see, he could let you dream through his musings and go on that journey with him, as he would also struggle with these things. I've Got to Go Back Home was a perfect gift to everyone who found themselves in a diasporic situation where they thought about the idea of connecting back to somewhere. The idea that you have an egress, that if all this would go to ruin or include your experience, you had an egress. So the concept of I've Got to Go Back Home was a generous gift to anybody in any diaspora, his generosity. I think I've experienced such personal generosity from him. It's hard to quantify. He was the only person I know, the first time I met him. The first time I worked with him, he asked me, "How much is it that you need, Mike?" He didn't tell me that this is what the gig pays. He said, no, you need a certain amount to make things right. To make it, what is it? Whatever it is, just let me know. And that's what he paid me. I was the youngest case of perforated DU in the whole Caribbean in the mid-80s. And I was fortunate enough to know a few of the doctors there, including the resident surgeon, the senior resident surgeon. And so I went right through. I left the airport road shucking oysters with Guy Morris's daughter, a good friend of mine, Marjorie. And then went, when she saw something was wrong, took me to the hospital at UA. And not even 5 minutes, they took me to the operating theater, right? When I woke up, he was one of the first people who came to visit me. I didn't even know him well then. We hadn't worked together. But he had been seeing my work and loving my work. I just thought he had to give something to me, just an encouraging word. I thought, wow, this guy, you know what I mean? And I remember the nurse just saying, "Who are you? You must be important if these people are coming to see you." I don't know. I'm Mr. Nobody, but he and others do it, not just him, because to be fair, there were some other people who came to see me, but I'd work with them, like people like keyboard man Ibu, he came, Carrot came, and a few others who I known personally. But he hadn't worked with him, but he came, It was just beautiful. We actually played tennis together when he lived briefly in Florida, and he was so generous. Tennis is a funny sport. If you are at a particular level, and like say a class 2, and the other person is, let's say, class 4, it's almost impossible to play with them, even to just knock around with them, because it doesn't make any sense, really. But what he did, he allowed himself to be dragged around the court by playing dumb tennis, and he never once talked down. He was unmatched, I think. He was uncommonly kind. I mean, forgive me if I'm rambling. The last act of kindness or generosity that I got from him, he actually called me to say goodbye when he was dying. He called me from the hospital, so this was not just going through some, imaginary things. He called to say bye. They told him he had 3 weeks to live, and he thought he had to call me just to say bye. And even that, he had a beautiful sense of humor too, because.
Well, yeah, I was about to ask you about that. How did that kind of manifest? You don't hear that much in songwriting, perhaps in passing references, but around again the music, just interacting with him.
Oh yeah, we would. How sometimes you recognize the quality of someone's intellect or their thoughts, just generally, is their sense of humor, because what it signals is I liken it to like speed chess. The idea is that the mind operates in certain places, in certain I don't want to use terms that are too loaded, but the mind operates a particular way. When you hear something that's truthful or causes you to work it out, the speed at which you work it out is a reflection of how your mind actually works. So that's why sometimes you hear like Dave Chappelle give a joke, for example, or George Carlin. The slow one, they always say that it takes a time for it to get back to the room, because it's almost like speed chess. You're working it out, and then the reward is the laughter and the pace at which you get it. And he was like, he had a wicked sense of humor. Sometimes he would laugh so much, he would say, listen, old man, come off my phone. It was just stuff like that, because he would just be cracking up with laughter. I remember we shared a joke about what do you call someone who crosses the Atlantic twice without getting wet? And the clock is ticking, a dirty double crosser. Oh, and he was like,
Okay.
Stuff like that, It was so many, too many instances, man. And some of them were jokes, because a joke is not just a joke, It's specific and they're situational. And we're not talking about slapstick stuff or eyes bugging out or shouting or even imitation. We're talking about we're talking about things that stimulate the mind as you work it out. And that was the kind of humor that he had. He was very playful. He was young at heart, always.
One of the things I found with him was the frustration of him being constantly compared to his great period in Studio One. I've got to go back home, those songs. And he desperately wanted to be, the successive material that he recorded to be more recognized. Did you ever find that to be a frustration with him?
Absolutely. And what I like about him is his penchant for self-deprecation and honesty, and just calling a spade a spade. And I remember he did, and I can speak about it because it was broadcast on I think it was IRFM with a lady, I don't remember her name, but she's one of the top DJs on that station. She was asking him about the stuff that he was doing, but she kept referring to all this old stuff, like you say. But he's been recording great songs people sometimes just believe that they've heard everything that you have to say and don't believe that they want to hear anything more. Sometimes that is the fault of the people who curate your creations for public consumption, you know, vis-a-vis the radio station people. They decide, they put you in this bag, they give you this pony to ride, and that's it. So if it comes with a new song, they say, oh yeah, I love that, but I've got to go back home. You know, they keep walking to that place. And so, of course, it's incredibly frustrating. Prince went through that too. Michael Jackson went through that. Stevie Wonder is currently going through that. And no one can deny that these guys were some of the greatest that ever did. So our great friend Bob, yes, being human, of course, he was frustrated with the fact that people didn't have enough bandwidth to process his earlier work and still understand and appreciate his new work. Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah. No, I was saying that he did this song New Morning with a bass player, colleague of his in London, and it's subsequently with another bass player friend of his in Jamaica.
Glenn Brownie.
He's also a generous soul who mentored me, you know, for a little while. You know, that's for another day. But yeah, and but they never gave it a chance, I don't think. You know? No, see a new morning. But beautiful melody. And it just needed a little more treatment, a little more thing, but they could have done something more with it, you know? I wrote this title for him, Hanging Tough, which he really rather liked. He said I went into his soul for it. Oh, one of the most beautiful things also that spoke to his generosity and his willingness to step out of the spotlight. Apart from the fact that he, unlike most other singer-songwriters, could actually write for other people. Not just throwaway songs, but great songs he could write for other people. That's giving, you know.
Right, because he wrote great songs of Master Griffiths, for instance, which had a difference in that they were emotionally involved, so that was an added factor.
No, but I think he could do it irrespective of that. Oh, trust me, he had enough chops to do it in spite of that. That's just, you know, something that, you know, fills out the narrative. It'll probably make it more interesting for some people, but the central thesis is that he's a great songwriter and he's generous in that he can write for other people. You have other great songwriters who can't write for anybody but themselves. And when I was recording the song, which was the title track for his record, Hanging Tough, he literally was so proud to showcase me as a songwriter that I heard him, not someone saying that he'd said it, but I heard him and say, hey, our baby faces. He was talking about me. Yeah, to Mr. Heavybeat. I can't remember his name. Willie Lindo. Yeah, and they were working on a song and they needed a line. And I just happened to stop by to visit him. He was at the studio working. And he said, oh, he's here. The great songwriter, Bob Andy, was saying, Mikey, he was proud of showcasing me, selflessly pulling back himself and saying, this is the guy I need to listen to. I said, what? You know? Yeah, oh yeah. A beautiful human soul and the whole idea of being self-deprecating was also in humor. Because he told me about one time when he performed one of his songs. He frequently titled his songs in the most unexpected ways. Because My Resistance is Getting Weaker, that's not the title of a song. I think it's called is it In My Time or something? I don't remember what's the actual title of the song. But anyway, he was doing a performance and he had finished performing that song and Fire Burning. When it was done, he said to me, somebody heard him sing and said, "Why the old man, nice, sing good, nice, but like I'm sound, him do a great job, man. But you must learn to sing his own song, man." Yeah. That Bob was singing his own songs, but he thought that Barrington Levy had done "My Resistance Is Getting Weak," and he was able to laugh. He laughed, and you know him when he laughs, a full belly laugh. Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible, man.
Finally, Mikey, what impact would you say he made on your life?
He told me a few things that were profound, and I've often said when people ask me about parenting and thing and what I'd like to do, I always say I'm still searching for that wise thing to tell to my sons, that they can say, "Daddy said that," and to this day I haven't found any wise thing to tell my sons. I'm still working on that. I've often told Bob that I'm going to steal some of the things that he told me. He had this concept about the future is now. And like I said, he could find a way to simplify even some of the most complex things without being simplistic about it. That, let's say, for example, if you are in Brooklyn and whatever mode of transport you could take would get you into the city in Manhattan in 15 minutes. You need to be there in 15 minutes. So it's 2 o'clock now, so you need to be there at 2:15. And you find yourself leaving where you are at 2:10. It says you are already late. Because if it takes 15 minutes to get there and it's 2:10, you're already late. So the future is now. In other words, at 2 o'clock, your future in New York is actually now. So if you leave 2:10, your future is past you. He taught me stuff like that. He told me that it is most importantly okay to be authentically me. That's what I learned from him. And I'm not shy about being me. I'm not scared to be me. I'm not ashamed of being me, because someone who I valued so much with the course of his life showed me so much of what he thought of me. And I said, wow. So there must be some value there, And yeah, so he left me with that as a lasting, priceless bit of, aesthetic to live by. Yeah, I'd say that's what he left me with.
Thank you, man.